You weren't born to quit. You were born to conquer. I don't care how dark it feels right now. I don't care how tired you are. And I don't care how many times you failed. Before you give up, you need to hear this. There are 7 things you must say to yourself. And if you do, your future will never look the same again. You see, one of the greatest tragedies in life is not failure. It's almost success. The man who stops running at mile 25 of a 26-mile marathon never knows he had 1 mile left in him. The entrepreneur who gives up right before the market turns never knows she was a single pivot away from wealth. The dreamer who packs it in too soon never realizes they were inches away from destiny. There's a kind of heartbreak that comes when you look back and say, I could have had it if I had just held on a little longer. And that pain, that regret, it lasts far longer than the temporary discomfort of staying in the game. You ever hear the story of Darby and the gold mine? During the California gold rush, R.U. Darby and his uncle invested everything they had into mining. Weeks turned into months. They struck a vein of gold. Briefly, then it vanished. Frustrated, they gave up, sold their equipment to a junk man for pennies on the dollar. That junk man, he brought in a mining engineer. And you know what they found? The gold was just 3 feet away from where Darby stopped digging. 3 feet. That's all that separated quitting from generational wealth. Now, you're probably not digging for gold, but you are digging for something. A breakthrough, a second chance, a new identity, a life with meaning. And I've got news for you. You don't get to know how close you are. That's the deal. Life doesn't hand out mile markers when you're chasing something great. You're in the fog. You're in the fire. And you don't get a warning when the tide is about to turn. That's why you must never quit based on emotion alone. Feelings are real, but they're not facts. Your mind will say, it's over. Your heart will whisper, I can't do this. But deep down, there's a voice that says, what if I'm right there? What if this is a test before the triumph? That voice, that's the one you feed. You don't quit because it's hard. You don't walk away because it's slow. You don't stop because you're tired. You stop when the job is done. The universe has a funny way of hiding your reward just beyond your breaking point. And most people, they never find out how close they were because they didn't hang on one more day. So if you feel like quitting today, don't. Because if you stop now, you might never know that you were 3 feet away from everything you ever wanted. And that would be a heartbreak you carry for the rest of your life. But if you keep going, just imagine what's waiting on the other side. There comes a moment when you feel like you can't take one more hit, one more setback, one more rejection. And in that moment, your mind starts whispering, this might be the one that breaks me. But let me tell you something. It's not. You know how I know? Because you've been here before. Maybe not in this exact form, but in another storm. You felt the ground shake beneath your feet. You've had nights where you couldn't sleep because the weight of it all was too much. And still you're here. That matters. That means something. You see, pain doesn't just leave scars. It leaves proof. Proof that you endured. Proof that you got back up. Proof that even when life tried to bury you, you kept breathing, kept walking, kept moving. That's strength. That's grit. That's what champions are made of. There was a woman I once met at a seminar. Small frame, soft-spoken, barely made a sound. But her eyes told a story of war. She lost her job, her marriage, and her home, all within 6 months. She stood up during the Q&A, and everyone thought she was going to ask for help. But instead, she said, I just want to say thank you, because I lost everything, and I found myself. That's someone who knew the truth. You don't know how strong you are until strong is the only choice you've got. Now, listen, don't let your mind trick you into thinking this is your first battle. It's not. This is just the latest round in a fight you've already been winning. Think back. The time they said you weren't good enough, but you kept going. The time everything fell apart, and you rebuilt from dust. The time they walked away, and you stood alone but not broken. Those moments didn't defeat you. They defined you. Psychologists call this resilience memory. It's the ability to recall past survival in the face of present struggle. It's your inner proof that if you've conquered before, you can conquer again. But here's the trick. You have to remind yourself. You have to bring it back into focus. Because in the middle of chaos, the mind forgets what the heart already knows. So the next time you say, I can't do this, say instead, I have done this, and I made it through. This isn't your first fire, and it won't be your last. But fires don't burn down steel. They forge it. And that's what you are now, forged by your pain, built by your past, and stronger than the storm you're facing. You've been through worse. You survived then. You'll rise again now. Believe it, speak it, live it, because that's the truth. And it's time you remembered who you are. Pain is not random. It doesn't show up without a reason. It's not just life being cruel or unfair. Pain is a messenger. And behind every ache, there's a lesson. Behind every wound, there's wisdom. Behind every fall, there's purpose. The challenge is, when you're in it, when you're hurting, purpose is the last thing on your mind. You're not thinking about growth. You're thinking, how do I make this stop? But here's the truth. Some of the greatest growth you'll ever experience will be born from the most uncomfortable moments of your life. There's a story I always come back to. A young man in his 20s, fired from his dream job, publicly humiliated, broke, depressed, living on borrowed time in his friend's spare bedroom. He said to himself, this can't be it. So he picked up a pen and started writing. His pain became his ink. His struggle became his story. That man's name? J.K. Rowling's male counterpart in the screenwriting world, Sylvester Stallone. Wrote Rocky with $100 in the bank. Rejected over 1,000 times. But he refused to sell the script unless he played the lead. That wasn't stubbornness. That was pain turned into purpose. And the moment it all connected, the world saw a fighter. But what they really saw was a man who turned suffering into something that could move people. You have that same power. But only if you stop asking, why me? And start asking, what is this trying to teach me? See, when pain hits, most people retreat. They run. They numb. They distract themselves with noise, comfort, or excuses. But the ones who transform, they lean in. They ask, what is this shaping me into? What strength am I building that I don't even see yet? Psychologists call this post-traumatic growth. It's the idea that hardship can actually elevate you spiritually, mentally, emotionally. If you allow it, you don't come out weaker. You come out wiser. You stop tolerating what you used to accept. You speak up where you used to stay quiet. You walk taller. You choose differently. Because pain woke you up to who you really are. It's not about loving the pain. It's about honoring the purpose it came with. So when you're broken, don't say, why me? Say, what now? What am I being prepared for? What am I being shaped into? Because make no mistake, this pain has a purpose. Not to destroy you, but to rebuild you. Stronger, wiser, and ready for the next chapter. The only thing worse than going through pain is going through it for nothing. So don't waste it. Turn it into power, because that's why it came. Quitting feels easy in the moment. It gives you instant relief, instant silence, instant escape. But here's the catch. Quitting lasts. It leaves a permanent mark on your story. It closes the door, locks it, and tells the world you were finished before the breakthrough had a chance to show up. Now, contrast that with trying again. Trying again doesn't guarantee success, but it guarantees movement. And movement, that's where life is. Trying again means you haven't surrendered your power. Trying again says, I still believe something can change. That belief, that flicker of hope, that's power. Let me tell you about a man who was rejected over and over. So many times it became a joke. He went bankrupt multiple times. He was fired by a newspaper editor for lacking imagination. He even had a mental breakdown before the age of 25. His name? Walt Disney. Now imagine if he had quit after that second failure. Imagine if he believed the critics, if he believed the bank managers, if he believed the voices that said, it's over, no theme parks, no Mickey Mouse, no magic. You see, the world never remembers the moment you failed, but they'll never forget the moment you rose again. Psychologically, the act of trying again creates neural patterns of resilience. When you push forward, even after setbacks, you train your brain to adapt, to fight, to grow. You send a signal to your subconscious. I don't fold. I evolve. Now here's the truth you don't want to hear. Sometimes you will fail again. Sometimes trying again means risking more pain, more disappointment, more discomfort. But that's the price of transformation. And the cost of quitting? That's regret. Regret is the interest you pay on decisions that cost you your future, and it compounds over time. But effort multiplies your chances. Every time you try again, the odds shift. Your skills grow. Your timing improves. The right person sees you. The right door cracks open. The people who make it, they're not the smartest, not the fastest, not the most talented. They're the ones who kept showing up. So ask yourself, do I want the short-term comfort of giving up or the long-term strength of staying in the ring? Because quitting is final. It leaves no room for return. But trying again, that's where reinvention begins. The moment you rise after defeat, that's the moment you shift the story. That's when the world leans in and says, now that's someone I believe in. So if today feels like the end, make it your beginning. Don't quit. Try again. Because try again is how your power returns. There's something powerful about knowing that someone is watching you. And it's not always who you think. It's not the critics. It's not the naysayers. It's not even the people who cheer you on. Sometimes it's the ones who remain silent, the ones who don't speak up. But they're watching, learning, taking notes. They're learning how to fight by watching you. When you're struggling, it's easy to think you're alone. The weight of the world feels like it's on your shoulders. You might feel like no one sees the sacrifice. No one sees the late nights, the moments of doubt, the fights you're having with yourself. But let me tell you something. Someone is always watching. Maybe it's your child, learning how to stand up when life knocks you down. Maybe it's a friend who's waiting for you to give up so they can justify their own excuses. Maybe it's a colleague who sees how hard you're pushing and is silently being inspired to push harder themselves. There's always someone looking at you, not just for the victory, but for the way you handle defeat, for the way you stand tall when you're broken, for the way you rise from the ashes. You know, there's a story about Thomas Edison. He failed over and over again trying to invent the light bulb. Hundreds of experiments, thousands of attempts, and every time he failed, his critics grew louder. But one thing he said stuck with me. I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Most people would have quit at attempt number 100, or 500, or even 99.99. But Edison didn't quit. Why? Because he knew that in every failure, someone was watching, someone who needed to see him keep going. And that someone? It wasn't just his employees or his investors. It was the future. It was the generations who would learn the power of persistence by watching him fight through the impossible. Now, I want you to ask yourself, who's watching you? Who's learning how to handle life's challenges from the way you move through yours? You see, every decision you make, every choice to stand firm, to persevere, to keep going, teaches someone how to fight. And here's the kicker. You may never know who that someone is. It could be a child, a stranger, or even someone you've never met. But they're watching. They're watching to see how you handle the setbacks, how you turn pain into power, how you transform failure into fuel. So when you feel like giving up, when the fight seems too much, remember this. Someone is watching, and the way you respond will become the blueprint for their own battle. That's the legacy you leave, not in what you accomplish, but in how you fight, in how you show up when everything says you should bow out, because someone is watching. And they're learning how to fight. So the next time you feel like you're on the edge of quitting, remember that there's someone, somewhere, who needs to see you keep going. For them, for you, and for the future you're building one fight at a time. When you're in the middle of struggle, it's hard to see anything but the darkness. It feels like the world is collapsing. It feels like this is the end. Like this is the worst chapter you could ever experience. But I'll tell you this. The greatest stories ever told They all start in the darkest moments. Think about the greatest heroes you know. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. Not one, not two, but 27 years. Imagine the loneliness, the fear, the doubts, the uncertainty. And yet, that was just the beginning of his story. Imagine if Mandela had given up in those first years. Imagine if he had let the weight of his isolation consume him. We wouldn't have the same legacy we have today. His story wouldn't have inspired millions. But because he chose to persevere, to keep fighting, even when he couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, he became one of the most powerful voices for freedom and justice in history. His worst chapter wasn't his ending. It was the beginning of something far greater. There's a reason why the best stories begin in the worst chapters. It's because the pain, the struggle, the challenge, that's where the transformation happens. You don't become who you were meant to be when everything is easy. You become who you were meant to be when you've been tested, when you've been broken, when you've been pushed to the edge and still found a way to rise. It's in the struggle where you discover your true strength. It's in the battle where you find your resilience. It's in the darkness that you learn to ignite your own light. Let me tell you a story. There's a man named Steve Jobs, fired from the company he created, lost everything. At the lowest point in his career, he was living in his garage, uncertain of the future. But that moment, that chapter of loss and frustration, was the beginning of his greatest innovations. The story of his struggles with Apple led him to create the iPhone, the iPad, the technology that changed the world. Had he given up, we wouldn't have the devices we rely on every day. His worst chapter? It was just a prelude. You see, when you're going to the fire, it feels like the end. It feels like your story is being written in ashes. But in truth, that is the moment where the hero is being forged. If you're in a bad chapter right now, understand this. The best stories are written from places like this. And your story is no different. The struggles you face today are laying the foundation for who you're about to become. The pain you feel now is shaping the future you've yet to see. When you're in the dark, when you're at your lowest, remind yourself, this isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning. And if you can hang on, if you can keep pushing through this chapter, the next one will be the turning point. The best stories begin in the worst chapters. And your story? It's just getting started. You've been there, haven't you? Staring down a moment where everything feels like it's falling apart. The weight of the world is on your shoulders, and you feel like you're trapped in the worst chapter of your life. It's overwhelming. It feels like there's no way out. But here's the truth. The best stories always begin in the worst chapters. Think about the most iconic stories you know. The heroes, the leaders, the people who've changed the world. They didn't rise to greatness because life handed them an easy path. No, they became great because they walked through the storm and came out stronger on the other side. Let's take a look at Oprah Winfrey. She was fired from her first television job because they said she was unfit for TV. She had nothing. She was at rock bottom. But Oprah didn't see that as the end. She saw it as the beginning of something bigger. Through her pain and rejection, she found her true calling and built an empire that continues to inspire millions around the world. Had she given up after that failure, who would have told her story? Who would have witnessed her rise? That's the point. When you're going through a tough time, it's easy to think that the pain you're feeling is a sign that you're failing. But it's actually the catalyst for your greatest transformation. Think about it. Every great story has a conflict. Every hero has a trial they must face. And it's in that trial where their character is forged. It's in that trial where they become who they were meant to be. And here's the kicker. It's not just about you. It's about everyone watching you. There's someone out there right now who's watching you struggle and thinking, if they can keep going, so can I. There's power in the struggle. There's power in surviving the worst chapter of your life. Because when you come out on the other side, you don't just have a story. You have the wisdom, the resilience, the strength to show others the way. This isn't some motivational fluff. This is the truth. The hardest moments in your life are shaping you for something bigger. The fire you're walking through today is what's going to mold you into a person who can handle the success, the responsibility, the joy that's waiting for you. You may not see it now, but everything you're going through is preparing you for the life you want. The pain, the struggle, the setbacks, it's all part of the process. just like a sculptor chisels away at the marble, shaping it into something beautiful. Your struggles are shaping you into a masterpiece. So when you feel like you can't take another step, when you feel like this is the worst chapter you'll ever have, remember this. This isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning. And what comes next, that's where the magic happens. The best stories always begin in the worst chapters. And the best chapters? They're waiting for you to keep writing. At some point, you have to come to terms with this harsh truth. Nobody is coming to save you. No one is going to swoop in and rescue you from your struggles. No knight in shining armor. No magical moment where everything falls into place. And that's okay, because the truth is you don't need saving. What you need is to save yourself. You see, we often wait for that breakthrough moment, the moment when someone will step in and solve all of our problems. But if you live your life waiting for that, you'll wait forever. There is no superhero coming to fix your problems, and that's the good news, because you are the superhero of your own story. Take a look at the story of J.K. Rowling. Before she became one of the most successful authors in history, she was a single mother on welfare. She was broke. She was rejected by multiple publishers. She had nothing but a dream and the drive to see it through. And in the middle of all that, nobody came to save her. But that's exactly what made her stronger. She understood that her success would come from her own resilience, her own determination, her own refusal to give up. She didn't sit around waiting for someone to hand her an opportunity. She created her own. And what happened? Her story changed the world. The lesson here is this. When you realize that nobody is coming to save you, you stop relying on external forces. You stop waiting for the perfect conditions, the right people, or the right timing. Instead, you take control. You stop asking for permission. You stop looking for someone to pull you out of the pit, and you start climbing yourself. This shift in mindset is what separates the dreamers from the doers, the successful from the stagnant. Think about it. Every great achievement in history came because someone decided to take responsibility. They stopped waiting for someone to give them the green light and started moving, even when the road was unclear, even when the odds were stacked against them. Do you think Elon Musk waited for someone to give him the keys to change the world? No, he took those keys himself. Even when people laughed at him, even when his ideas seemed impossible, he kept going because he knew that nobody was coming to save him, and that was exactly what he needed to realize. So here's the challenge. Stop waiting for a miracle. Stop waiting for someone to tell you it's your time. It's your time right now. You have everything you need inside of you. You have the power to make your own decisions. You have the ability to take control of your life and shape your future. It won't be easy. It won't be handed to you. But the day you realize nobody is coming to save you is the day you take the reins of your own life. You are not helpless. You are powerful. And it's time to step up, take charge, and create your own destiny. Nobody is coming to save you, but that's exactly what makes you unstoppable. I want you to think for a moment about regret. It's a feeling that haunts us all. It's that whisper in your ear, telling you about all the things you didn't do, the chances you didn't take, the words you didn't say, the opportunities you let slip through your fingers. Regret is a heavy weight, and it's one that can drag you down for years. But here's something you need to understand. I'd rather die trying than live with regret. Regret is a prison that locks you in the past. It keeps you trapped in the what could have been. But trying, that gives you a chance to create your own future. That gives you the power to change, to grow, to live without wondering, what if? I've seen too many people stuck in their comfort zones, too afraid to step out and take that leap. They hold back because they're terrified of failing. But here's the truth. Failure isn't what will haunt you. It's not trying. Think about Thomas Edison. He didn't invent the light bulb after one try. In fact, he failed thousands of times before he got it right. But what if he had stopped at the 999th try? What if he had let failure define him? What if he said, "I'm done, this isn't for me"? We wouldn't have the modern world we know today. His story isn't about success. It's about resilience. It's about refusing to let failure be the end. Edison would rather die trying than live with the regret of not giving it his all. You see, trying, even if it means failing, is far better than never trying at all. And if you don't give yourself the chance to try, you'll carry that regret for the rest of your life. And it doesn't just apply to big, world-changing moments. It applies to your personal life, too. Think about relationships, dreams, goals. How many times have you held back because you were afraid of what might happen if it didn't work out? How many times have you told yourself, maybe next time? Let me tell you something. Next time is never promised. You can't keep waiting for the perfect moment because it may never come. And when it doesn't, you'll be left with a life full of what-ifs and could-have-beens. When you die with regret, it's like carrying a bag of stones with you every single day. It eats away at your peace. It steals your joy. And it robs you of the chance to be who you were meant to be. But when you die trying, when you give it everything you have, win or lose, you die with peace. You die knowing that you went all in, that you live with purpose, that you gave the world your best. You may not always get the results you want, but you'll never have to wonder, what if? Wouldn't you rather live a life of action, of purpose, of growth? Wouldn't you rather look back and say, I gave my all? Because regret? That's the only thing that's worse than failure. And I'll take the risk of failure every time.